Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. I don't normally do 2 videos in consecutive days, but today is an exception because of the analysis I was doing in yesterday's video looking at the higher time frame DPs, and basically yesterday, i.e. the day after yesterday's video, we had an absolutely perfect example of it. But before we get onto the charts, let's just do the risk disclaimer. Remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken. They're shown for illustration and trading purposes only. There's risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know and understand that losses can and will do unfold. I'll say that again. Losses can and will and do unfold. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, I just want to quickly review what I was talking about in yesterday's video. It was about using the DPs on the higher time frame chart. Right, what I'll just do is I'll just put a little bit of white space on the right side of this particular chart here. By the way, today I'm actually using our add-ons for NinjaTrader 8. So yesterday I was using our new standalone version, MTPredictor 8. Today I'm using our NinjaTrader 8 add-ons. So let's go back to our higher time frame chart. Remember, the higher time frame is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher than you're working off. So if you're looking at a 3-minute chart, the higher time frame would be the 15-minute. If you're looking at, say, a daily chart, it would be weekly. If you're, say, trading Forex on, say, 15-minute charts, the higher time frame would be the hourly. So if we were go back to where are we? This was yesterday here. So we go back to just before yesterday opened, which was here. Right, remember what we do? We go to the prior pivot, we right mouse click, we then do DP, and as you can see, it's on the chart in advance. In other words, these are leading indicators. They're there ready for the market before it even gets there. So as you can see, this gave us a resistance level up at that particular level. If we scroll along, you can see the market opened, started to rally, then suddenly hit it, and then reversed quite sharply. If we now roll forward, you can see that actually then ended up the high of the day. And also, which I'll come back to later, the low was actually made on the DP from that pivot, but we'll look at that one in a bit later. So how do we then work with this? Well, we go to the shorter time frame chart, in this case the 3-minute again, and as you can see here we had a VS or volume spike sell set up, but can you see how this unfolded right at our 15-minute resistance area? Our new MTP trend indicator, which works off the major swings off the current chart, went black at this particular point in time. If I scroll forward to there, you can see how the indicator had gone black just as our VS setup came in. So this was a valid one to take. Let's right mouse click over the right cell bar, sorry, the red cell bar, do analysis, and here you can see this gave us our, just take that up there, get that the high time for DP out the way a bit. This then gave us our position sizing. Remember, we use correct position sizing to vary the number of lots, contracts or shares. In this case, less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. Remember, you can actually do different accounts if you wish. You can see that's in euros, British pounds, depending on what your account currency is actually in. The target was then down here, and as you can see, the market came in into a short position, and then the market declined quite sharply right down into this first target. At this first target, the MTP trend was strong, so you could have swapped using the ATR stop, and as you can see, that had basically stopped you out at about the same position. But the point being is, it got you in a short trade that actually nailed the high of the day, and the high of the day came in right at our higher time frame decision point level, just as we saw in yesterday's video. Remember, that would have been on the chart in advance before the market even opened. As the market came down, the profit was actually a very, very nice trade. It was actually 11R, or 11 times greater than initial risk. So this would have turned a initial risk of approximately $360, ignoring slippage and commission, into a profit of just over $4,000, so approximately 11 times greater than initial risk. So a very nice trade indeed. If we look at the NQ, there wasn't much going on that. So just like we saw yesterday, there were times when one of the markets wasn't quite so clear. The only trade set up here was this TS3 buy setup that didn't actually make the first target, but it did get to the DP from the prior wave B. So once you get to that level, at the very least you want to be bringing your stop to break even. Whoops, let me to clear all. Let's have a look at the ES. Here's the ES. ES had exactly the same. If I go out to the higher time frame chart, 15-minute chart, and again put the DP on from the last pivot high, there it is out there waiting for the market. We can just see what it did. It went up and caught the high of the day absolutely perfectly. If we now go back to the 3-minute chart, there we had a VS sell setup as well. A VS setup is one of our new setups in our MTPredictor 7 and 8 and NinjaTrader 8 add-ons. It's where there's a high volume spike that comes on a wide range bar that goes beyond a prior psychological pivot high, where the next bar we reverse at DP support or resistance in this case. Now this normally means that professionals are now coming in to sell the market. In other words, they're looking to fake out the amateurs. What normally happens is, because this is a professional backed trade setup, the market tends to move strongly in the opposite direction, and you see that's exactly what it did. So again, if we right mouse click over the red sell bar, do the analysis, here's the trade setup on the ES. Again, using correct position sizing to vary the number of lots, contracts or shares to keep your initial risk less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. As you can see, that again pretty much caught the high of the day, with our profit being down here at pretty much the low of the day. If you had have trailed with the ATR stop, you'd have been stopped out for about 5.9 or 6R. But were there any other reasons why you perhaps might want to consider that the decline here was over? Well, if I clear everything off and I go out to the higher time frame chart, remember these are on the chart in advance. Here's our next DP support zone. So there you go, the market came down, hit that DP support zone. So let's see what that looks like on the 3-minute chart. And there it is, coming in there right at the low. If I right mouse click over here, do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see this is also a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5-wave sequence with the low coming in at the minimum wave 5 WPT. So there were other reasons why this decline may be looking to end. The 5-wave sequence, support at the higher time frame DP support zone. So if you had have come out at this area, it would have been a nice 6.7R profit. You might have decided to use if I open our trade module, we have an option here that you can use a bar trailing stop. In other words, that's 1 tick above the bar highs if you're going short, or 1 tick below the bar lows if you're going long, and that would have then, I'll just close that, that would have then ticked down, and then stopped you out just about there for a nice 6.9R profit. So again, another example of using our higher time frame support and resistance zones, our DPs on the higher time frame chart, to help gauge the large degree trend direction. Again, this is also helped by our MTP trend, and as you can see, the red downtrend turned into black as we went to this VS setup. So it was at an area of where a reversal was likely, came down into our low of the day there, where again the MTP trend turned black and then turned blue as the market started to rally up a bit later on. So another good example of using MTPredictor, this time on our NinjaTrader 8 add-ons, where we are focusing on using the higher time frame chart for our DP support and resistance zones, and then looking to take trade setups that fall in that larger degree trend direction. And as you can see, we had a very nice VS sell setup on the ES that pretty much nailed the high of the day, but the star of the show was the YM that got a slightly better entry and a higher risk reward, where here the trade was from that red sell bar down into the target for a lovely 11R profit.